The first time I saw a human kill something with nothing but their bare hands and sheer stupidity, I knew we had made a terrible mistake. My name is Zeph-Ka, and I'm what you might call a military intelligence officer for the Galactic Confederation. Well, I was anyway. Hard to maintain a career when you're the idiot who recommended we pick a fight with the most psychotic species in the known universe. But I'm getting ahead of myself. 3 cycles ago, when humanity first stumbled into our little corner of the galaxy with their pathetic rust bucket ships and their adorable primitive weapons, we thought they'd make excellent slaves. I mean, seriously, have you seen these creatures? They're made of meat. Actual exquisite. No natural armor, no venomous fangs, no acid spit. They can't even see properly in the dark. What kind of apex predator can't see in the dark? The answer, as it turns out, is the kind that doesn't need to see you to absolutely ruin your entire day. Commander Vex Prime, my superior at the time, was practically drooling when the first human ship wandered into our territory. "Look at them, Zeph-Ka," he said, his 4 eyes gleaming with greed. "Bipedal, soft-skinned, no natural weapons. They will fetch excellent prices in the slave markets of Kronos." I should have known something was wrong when Captain Lisa Martinez of the human vessel Defiant actually laughed when we transmitted our surrender demands. Not a nervous laugh, mind you. This was the kind of laugh you hear right before someone does something spectacularly violent and completely insane. "You want us to surrender?" she replied over the comm, and I could practically hear the grin in her voice. "That's adorable. Hey Jake, these purple guys want us to surrender." "No kidding," came another human voice in the background. "Should we tell them about the Murphy's Law?" "Nah," Martinez replied. "Let's show them instead." Now, any reasonable species would have taken this as a sign to maybe reconsider their approach. But we Xeloxians have always prided ourselves on our military superiority. We had 10 battle cruisers surrounding their single, pathetic vessel. What could possibly go wrong? Famous last words, as the humans would say. The first indication that we had severely miscalculated came when their ship didn't try to run. Instead, it accelerated directly toward our flagship. Not at an angle for a ramming attack, mind you. That would have been suicidal, but understandable. No, they flew straight at us. Then, at the last possible second, performed a maneuver that should have torn their ship apart and somehow ended up behind our formation. "How do they do that?" Vex Prime demanded, his mandibles clicking in agitation. "Unknown, sir," replied our navigation officer. "The G-forces from that turn should have liquefied their internal organs." "Maybe they're tougher than they look," I suggested, though even as I said it, I knew that wasn't right. I'd studied their physiology. They were as fragile as they appeared. So how were they still alive? The answer came 30 seconds later when their ship opened fire. Now, we'd scanned their weapons. Primitive projectile launchers, some basic energy weapons, nothing that could penetrate our shields. What we hadn't counted on was the fact that humans apparently don't believe in conventional physics. Instead of targeting our weapons or engines like any sane military force would do, they aimed for our waste disposal units. Yes, you heard correctly. They shot our toilets. "Sir," called out our damage control officer, his voice tight with disbelief, "they have vented our sewage systems into the ventilation network." The bridge immediately filled with a smell that would make a vegan stench beast weep. Half our crew was on the floor convulsing. The other half was trying very hard not to breathe. "Return fire." Vex Prime gasped, but it was too late. While we were busy trying not to die from our own biological waste, the human ship had somehow appeared directly above us. This time, they targeted our communication arrays, leaving us deaf and blind. "This is Captain Martinez," came the human's voice over our emergency channel, because apparently they could hack our secured frequencies while flying impossible maneuvers and making us smell our own digestive byproducts. "I'm transmitting the coordinates of the nearest habitable planet. I suggest you head there immediately. We outnumber you 10 to 1. Vex Prime snarled. "Correction," Martinez replied cheerfully. "You outnumber us 10 to 0. What does that even mean?" I whispered that that's when their ship exploded. Not from enemy fire, mind you. They detonated their own vessel. On purpose. While they were still inside it, the blast took out 3 of our cruisers and disabled 4 others. Through the debris field, I watched in absolute horror as small figures in crude spacesuits came sailing through the void, using nothing but handheld thrusters and what appeared to be welding torches. Are they insane? Our weapons officer shrieked. They are attacking battle cruisers with construction tools. That's when I began to understand the fundamental difference between humans and every other species in the galaxy. We fight to win. They fight because they find it entertaining. The first human to reach our ship was a female named Roberts. I know this because she introduced herself politely before she began cutting through our hull with a device that was definitely not designed for combat. "Hi there." Her voice crackled through our comm system. "Janet Roberts, demolitions expert. Mind if I come in? I promise to wipe my feet." Our hull is 2 meters of reinforced durasteel. Vex Prime protested. "Oh good," Roberts replied. "I was worried this might be too easy." It took her exactly 4 minutes and 37 seconds to burn through our armor. I timed it because I was in a state of shock, and timing things seemed like a reasonable response to watching everything I thought I knew about warfare get thrown out the nearest airlock. The humans who boarded our ship moved like they owned the place. Not with the confidence of superior warriors, but with the casual attitude of people who had already decided the outcome and were just going through the motions. They didn't even seem to be taking the situation seriously. "Nice ship," commented a large human male as he casually disarmed our security team. "Very purple. I like the tentacle motifs." "Those aren't tentacles," I said automatically. "They're sacred geometric patterns representing the eternal spiral of—" "Cool story," he interrupted, then somehow managed to tie 3 of our guards together using their own weapon straps. "Hey Martinez, you seeing this architecture? It's like if an octopus designed a cathedral." "Focus, Tommy," came Martinez's voice. She had apparently materialized in our bridge while we were all watching the boarding action. "We are here to make a point, not provide interior design commentary." "How did you get in here?" Vex Prime demanded, raising his plasma rifle. Martinez glanced at the weapon, then at him, then back at the weapon. "Really? You're going to threaten me with a gun while standing 3 feet away? Have you people never heard of basic tactics?" Before Vex Prime could respond, she had somehow crossed the distance between them, disarmed him, and used his own weapon to pin him to the wall by his uniform. The entire sequence took maybe 2 seconds. "Now then," she said, settling into the commander's chair like she owned it, "let's talk about your surrender." "We don't surrender," Vex Prime declared. "The Zelaxian Empire has never—" "Oh, but you will," Martinez interrupted, and her smile was absolutely terrifying. "Because if you don't, I'm gonna let my crew get creative. And trust me, you really don't want to see what humans consider creative." As if on cue, Robert's voice came over the comm. "Hey Captain, I found their engine room. This is fascinating. They're using antimatter containment fields that are just begging to be recalibrated. Want me to see what happens if I reverse the polarity?" "Please don't," I shouted before I could stop myself. "See," Martinez said pleasantly, "Zeph-Ka here understands the situation. You reverse the polarity on an antimatter containment field, and boom. Very big boom. The kind that takes out everything in a 3 light-minute radius." "You die too," Vex Prime pointed out. "Probably," Martinez agreed. "But that's the thing about humans. We are perfectly willing to die if it means taking you with us. It's a character flaw." That's when I realized we weren't dealing with a military force. We were dealing with an entire species of suicide bombers who thought tactics were more of a suggestion than a requirement. "What do you want?" I asked because someone had to be reasonable, and it clearly wasn't going to be my commander. "Smart question," Martinez nodded approvingly. "We want you to go back to whatever hole you crawled out of and tell everyone you meet that humans are not to be messed with. Think you can manage that? And if we refuse?" Vex Prime demanded that Martinez's smile got wider. "Then Roberts gets to find out what happens when you reverse the polarity on an antimatter containment field. I'm curious too, actually, for science." The next few minutes were filled with the sound of Vex Prime's dignity dying a slow, painful death as he authorized the retreat. Our entire battle fleet, defeated by a handful of humans with construction equipment and a death wish as we limped back to Confederation space. I couldn't stop thinking about what I'd witnessed. These creatures had turned a military engagement into some kind of twisted game. They'd used tactics that should have gotten them killed, weapons that weren't designed for combat, and strategies that made no sense whatsoever. And they'd won. Decisively. There's more, Rodriguez added. The Devourers have agreed to help with the galaxy's waste management problem. Apparently, they love recycling organic matter. All those garbage dumps we have been complaining about, the Devourers see them as high-end buffets. They're going to eat our garbage. Corvus asked. With proper seasoning, yes. Very environmentally conscious, these folks. They're also interested in establishing cooking schools. Seems they have some fascinating techniques involving controlled nuclear fusion for flavor enhancement. Over the next several hours, we watched in amazement as reports flooded in from across the galaxy. The Devourer fleet wasn't conquering worlds. They were opening restaurants. The Crystalline Collective reported that a Devourer ship had arrived in their system offering to trade artisanal mineral processing for lessons in local cuisine. The warrior clans of Gorlax were hosting a barbecue competition judged by Devourer food critics. The Robotic Confederation had established an exchange program teaching Devourers about food preservation while learning advanced materials science. Even the spiritual leaders of the Enlightened Ones had gotten involved, claiming that mindful eating was the highest form of meditation and offering to teach the Devourers about sustainable consumption practices. This is madness, I said for what felt like the 1,000th time that day. This is humanity, Corvus corrected. They have weaponized hospitality. 3 weeks later, I found myself attending the first Galactic Culinary Summit, held on a neutral space station that had been hastily converted into a massive kitchen. The sight of a 3-meter-tall crystalline devourer carefully explaining the proper technique for julienning vegetables to a group of fascinated Zaloxian chefs was something I never thought I'd witness. Captain Rodriguez found me at the dessert table, naturally. "So, what do you think?" he asked, gesturing toward the controlled chaos of the cooking demonstrations. "I think," I said slowly, "that your species has a talent for finding the most impossible solutions to the most impossible problems." "Thanks. We try." "Oh, you should meet Queen Vorthak. She's been asking about you." Before I could protest, Rodriguez was leading me toward a group of Devourers who were engaged in what appeared to be an animated discussion about spice blending. The largest of them, whose crystalline structure sparkled with embedded metals, turned toward us as we approached. "Ah," she said in the harmonic language of her people, "you must be Zeph-Ka. Miguel has told me much about you." "Your Majesty," I said, attempting what I hoped was an appropriate bow. "Please call me Vorthak. I understand you write intelligence reports about humanity." "I do, Your Majesty." "I mean, Vorthak." "Excellent. I hope you will include a section about their remarkable ability to see solutions where others see only problems. For 50,000 years, my people wander the galaxy, consuming worlds because we believed it was our only option. The humans showed us that hunger was not a reason for destruction, but an opportunity for creation." She gestured toward the bustling kitchen around us. "Look at what we have built together in mere weeks. Food, friendship, knowledge shared freely between species who once feared each other. It is remarkable," I admitted. "The humans have a saying," Vorthak continued. "They say the best way to someone's heart is through their stomach." We thought this was merely a quaint metaphor. We were wrong. It is a fundamental truth of existence. I watched as a young human chef showed a group of Devourer students how to properly fold dumplings, their massive crystalline hands surprisingly gentle as they worked with the delicate dough. "Your report," Vorthak said, "should make clear that humanity's greatest weapon is not their unpredictability or their refusal to follow conventional tactics. Their greatest weapon is their absolute refusal to accept that any problem cannot be solved through understanding, compassion, and proper seasoning." I will make sure to include that. I promised as I prepare my final report on humanity's impact on galactic civilization. I realized that everything had changed in ways no one could have predicted. The humans hadn't conquered the galaxy through superior firepower or advanced technology. They had transformed it through the simple revolutionary act of treating everyone like potential friends rather than inevitable enemies. They had turned warfare into friendship, enemies into allies, conflicts into cooking competitions, and the galaxy's most feared destroyers into enthusiastic food critics. They had weaponized hospitality, militarized kindness, and somehow made it all look effortless. The galaxy was safer, happier, and significantly better fed than it had ever been in recorded history. And the most terrifying part? This was apparently just the beginning. According to the latest intelligence reports, humanity had just made contact with the Void Wraiths, interdimensional beings of pure malevolence who existed only to spread suffering and despair. The human diplomatic team had brought them chocolate chip cookies and invited them to a movie night. Early reports suggested the Void Wraiths were interested in learning about comfort food and were considering a career change into grief counseling. That I close my final report with a single recommendation. In any future encounters with humanity, bring snacks. Lots of snacks. And maybe learn to dance. It seems to help. I watched in mounting horror as delegates began murmuring interest. The humans were doing it again. Even through a simple transmission, they were making the galaxy's most hardened military leaders consider attending their social gathering. This is a trap, I said desperately. It has to be. Martinez looked directly at me through the screen. Hello, Zeph-Ka. How's that report coming along? The fact that she knew my name, despite never having met me, was somehow not surprising anymore. I've been doing some research of my own, she continued. Turns out your people have a saying, know your enemy. We humans prefer know your friends, because everyone's a friend you just haven't met yet. We are not friends, declared General Crix. Not yet, Martinez agreed. But give it time. I've got a feeling you are going to love human barbecue. We have got this sauce that will change your life. And that's how the most feared military alliance in galactic history was defeated by an invitation to dinner. The Peace and Friendship Festival was held 3 weeks later on a neutral space station. I attended as part of the official Confederation delegation, mainly because someone had to witness what was certain to be a massacre. Instead, I watched the Vraxian ambassador learn to play something called beer pong, while the hive mind drones formed a surprisingly good jazz band. The Robotic Confederation's AIs were sharing memes and laughing at their own jokes. The warrior clans of Gorlax had organized a dance-off with human marines. Not what you expected. Captain Martinez appeared beside me at the refreshment table. I don't understand, I admitted. How do you do it? How do you turn enemies into friends without firing a shot? She handed me something called a hot dog, which was neither hot nor canine-based. Easy, she said. We assume everyone's basically decent until they prove otherwise. And even then, we figure they just need better snacks. But your military tactics, your strategies, are designed to end fights as quickly as possible so we can get to the fun part, she interrupted. Look around, Zeph-Ka. Is anyone here unhappy? I looked. The spiritual leader of the Enlightened Ones was teaching human children meditation techniques while learning about something called video games. The Mandalorian warriors were trading war stories with human veterans and discovering they had a lot in common. This doesn't make sense, I muttered. You can't solve galactic conflicts with friendship and food. Martinez grinned. Watch us. And somehow, impossibly, it worked. The festival lasted 3 days, and by the end, every species present had signed mutual defense and trade agreements. Not through negotiation or threats, but because they genuinely liked each other. The humans had weaponized friendship itself. As I file my final report, I realized that humanity wasn't the galaxy's most terrifying warrior species because they were violent or unpredictable. They were terrifying because they could make you want to be better than you were. They could turn enemies into allies, conflicts into celebrations, and wars into dinner parties. And the most frightening part? They made it look effortless. The galaxy would never be the same. And honestly, that was probably for the best. After all, anyone who could turn the combined military forces of 12 sectors into a social club was definitely someone you want on your side. Even if they did insist on serving something called pineapple pizza at formal diplomatic functions. Some things, I decided, were worth getting used to, but the humans weren't finished with us yet. Oh no, that would have been too simple. 6 months after the Peace and Friendship Festival, I received an urgent message from Galactic Intelligence Command. The humans had done something that defied every law of physics, common sense, and basic survival instinct known to civilized species. They had made contact with the Devourers. The Devourers, for those fortunate enough to never encounter them, are exactly what their name suggests. A species of crystalline beings from the outer rim who consume entire planets, strip mining worlds down to their cores, and leaving nothing but empty space behind. They communicate only through violence, negotiate only through destruction, and their idea of diplomacy involves determining which species gets eaten first. For 3,000 years, the galaxy's combined fleets have maintained a quarantine zone around Devourer space. Not to contain them, mind you, but to give us enough warning to evacuate entire sectors when they inevitably break through, and the humans decided to go say hello. This is insane, I told Director Corvus as we reviewed the intelligence reports. Even humans can't be this reckless. Apparently they can, Corvus replied grimly, his tentacles writhing with agitation. The human ship Friendship Express crossed into the quarantine zone 3 days ago. We haven't heard from him since. I stared at the tactical display, showing the vast, empty region where the Devourers lurked. The Friendship Express? They named their ship the Friendship Express. Captain Rodriguez insisted it would send the right message, Corvus confirmed. Along with the human ambassador, they brought a full diplomatic team, including someone called a party planner and what their manifest lists as 17 tons of assorted snacks. They're trying to negotiate with planet-eating monsters using party snacks, I said slowly, trying to process this information. It gets worse, Corvus continued. 3 hours ago, we detected massive energy signatures from the Devourer homeworld. The kind of signatures we see right before they launch a harvesting fleet. My stomach, or what passes for a stomach of my species, dropped. How long do we have? At their normal speed? 6 months. But Zeph-Ka, Corvus turned all 4 of his eyes toward me. These energy readings are different. Stronger. Whatever the humans did, they have provoked something big. That's when the communication panel lit up with an incoming transmission from the quarantine zone. Oh, good, came a cheerful human voice. Someone's finally answering. This is Captain Miguel Rodriguez aboard the Friendship Express. Could someone please send us more salsa? We are running low. Corvus and I stared at each other. Captain Rodriguez, Corvus said carefully, what is your status? Status? Oh, we're great. Having a blast, actually. The Devourers are fascinating once you get to know them. Did you know they're not actually trying to destroy everything? They're just really, really hungry. Hungry, I managed to croak. Yeah, turns out their home planet got stripped of all edible materials about 50,000 years ago. They have been wandering around looking for food ever since, but they never learned to ask nicely. Cultural misunderstanding, really. The tactical display suddenly showed dozens of Devourer ships, moving away from their traditional territory. Captain, I said urgently, are the Devourers mobilizing their fleet? Mobilizing? Oh, you mean the convoy? Yeah, they're pretty excited. Apparently, they have never tasted Tex-Mex fusion cuisine before. We are organizing a galaxy-wide food truck tour. A what? Food truck tour. You know, mobile restaurants. The Devourers are going to visit different worlds and try local cuisine instead of, eating the actual planets. Revolutionary concept, really. I looked at the energy readings again. Those weren't weapon signatures. They were cooking fires. The Devourers had converted their planet-cracking equipment into kitchen appliances. How? Corvus whispered. How did you convince the most destructive force in the galaxy to become traveling food critics? Well, Rodriguez said thoughtfully, it helped that Maria brought her grandmother's tamale recipe. Turns out crystalline beings can taste through vibrational frequencies, and Maria's abuela makes a mean tamale. Who knew? The comm channel filled with what sounded like several different species laughing together. In the background, I could hear someone shouting instructions about proper salsa preparation in what I recognized as the Devourer's harmonic language. Captain, I said weakly, please tell me you didn't teach the Devourers to cook. Oh no, they already knew how to cook. They just forgot after their homeworld got stripped bare. We just reminded them that food tastes better when you don't have to destroy entire civilizations to get it. Basic culinary ethics. Really, culinary ethics. I repeated. Sure. Rule number 1, don't eat your customers. Rule number 2, always ask before sampling someone else's culture. Rule number 3, when in doubt, add more cheese. The tactical display now showed the Devourer fleet spreading out across the galaxy, but instead of the usual conquest patterns, they were following established trade routes. Each ship was broadcasting what appeared to be restaurant reviews. "This is unprecedented," Corvus muttered. "They have turned the galaxy's most feared species into food bloggers." "Gets better," Rodriguez continued cheerfully. "The Devourers want to establish formal diplomatic relations with everyone. Turns out they have got some amazing mineral extraction techniques that could revolutionize agriculture. They are offering to help terraform barren worlds in exchange for cooking lessons." "They want a farm?" I asked. "Apparently, eating planets is a lot of work when you could just grow your food like civilized people." The Devourer Queen, lovely lady by the way, says she's been looking for an excuse to retire from the whole Galactic Menace business for centuries. Too much travel, not enough time to develop her sourdough starter. I had to sit down. The most feared entity in known space was worried about her bread recipes. "Zeph-Ka," Vex Prime said quietly as we approached our home system, "what's your assessment of human military capabilities?" I thought about Captain Martinez's casual confidence, about Robert's cheerfully offering to blow us all up, about the way they'd made our superior technology look like children's toys. "Sir," I said carefully, "I recommend we never, ever, under any circumstances, pick a fight with humans again." "Noted," he replied. "Draft a report for High Command. Tell them we encountered a minor piracy issue and resolved it diplomatically." But I knew the truth would come out eventually. It always does. And when it did, when the rest of the galaxy learned what humanity was really capable of, everything was going to change. I just didn't realize how much. 3 months later, I was standing in the Grand Assembly Hall of the Galactic Confederation, watching my career implode in real time. The emergency session had been called after reports started flooding in from across 7 sectors. Every single species that had encountered humans was reporting the same thing: complete and utter military humiliation. High Chancellor Morketh, a being so ancient his scales had turned silver, glared down at me from the central podium. "Intelligence Officer Zeph-Ka," his voice boomed across the chamber, "you assured us that humans were primitive and weak. Explain to this assembly why the Vraxian Armada is currently floating in space as scrap metal." The Vraxian ambassador, what was left of him anyway, stood up on his remaining 3 legs. "They used our own shields against us," he screeched. "They somehow reversed our deflector arrays and turned them into weapons. My fleet was destroyed by its own defensive systems." "That's impossible," declared General Crix of the Battalion War Council. "No species has that level of technical knowledge." "Tell that to the wreckage." The Vraxian shot back. I cleared my throat nervously. "Honorable delegates, perhaps we should consider that humans employ unconventional tactics." Unconventional. The Mandorian representative's voice was a harsh rasp. "They convinced our warrior caste to fight each other by claiming it was a tournament and offering shiny medals as prizes. Our entire military structure collapsed because our soldiers wanted colorful ribbons." The chamber erupted in confused chatter. Chancellor Morketh slammed his ceremonial staff against the floor. "Order. We will hear from each affected species. Perhaps then we can understand the scope of this situation." The crystalline ambassador from Sector 9 floated forward, their translucent form shimmering with agitation. The humans approached our mining operations peacefully. They began. They offered to trade something called music for mineral rights. We thought it was harmless noise patterns. "And?" prompted the Chancellor. "It was a weapon," the ambassador whispered. "They called it heavy metal. Our workers became so energized by these sound frequencies that they increased productivity by 400%. Then they started demanding labor rights and fair wages. Our entire economic system collapsed within days. They weaponized music," I muttered, frantically taking notes. The hive mind representative from the BZT collective chittered angrily. "Worse, they taught our drones about individuality and personal expression. Half our population quit the collective to become freelance artists. Do you know how hard it is to run a hive mind when everyone wants to write poetry? This was getting ridiculous. Surely not every encounter has been. They turned our religious pilgrimage into a pub crawl, interrupted the spiritual leader of the enlightened ones. Our most sacred temples are now serving something called beer pong. The younger generation thinks enlightenment comes from fermented grain products. The Robotic Confederation's representative word to life. Error. Error. Human tactics do not compute. They introduced our AI systems to something called memes. Half our processing power is now dedicated to analyzing pictures of small Earth felines with text overlays. System efficiency has dropped to 12%. They made our AIs laugh. I asked weakly. Worse, the robot replied. They made them develop senses of humor. Do you know what it's like when your military computers start making jokes during combat situations? Chancellor Morketh looked like he was developing a migraine, which was impressive considering his species didn't have a nervous system. Are you telling me that this single species has defeated, subverted, or corrupted every military force they have encountered? Not defeated, corrected Ambassador Thek from the warrior clans of Gorlax. Befriended. The chamber fell silent. Explain. The Chancellor demanded. Thek shifted uncomfortably. They challenged our greatest warriors to single combat. Then they brought something called barbecue sauce and turned the fights into social gatherings. Our warriors are now pen pals with their human opponents. They exchange friendship bracelets and share selfies. One of the seven hells is a selfie. General Crix demanded. A picture you take of yourself. I said automatically, then immediately regretted it when everyone stared at me. How do you know that? Chancellor Morketh asked suspiciously. I fidgeted with my datapad. I may have been researching human culture. For intelligence purposes, of course. The truth was, I become fascinated by these impossible creatures. The more I studied them, the more I realized that their greatest weapon wasn't their unpredictability or their disregard for their own safety. It was their ability to make you like them while they were destroying everything you held dear. Research. The Chancellor repeated flatly. Show us what you have learned. I activated the main display screen. Humans appear to operate on what they call Murphy's Law. If something can go wrong, it will. But instead of trying to prevent problems, they plan for them. Every human strategy assumes everything will fail catastrophically, so they build redundancies into their redundancies. The display showed footage from various human encounters. When the Zephyrians tried to jam their communications, humans had already prepared for that. They used light signals, smoke patterns, and something called interpretive dance to coordinate their attacks. They communicated through dancing, asked the Zephyrian delegate weakly. Apparently, yes. They also seemed to treat warfare as a form of entertainment. Note how this human soldier is humming while disarming an explosive device. The footage showed a young human woman casually defusing a Galactic standard plasma bomb while singing something called Don't Worry, Be Happy. She's enjoying herself, whispered someone in the crowd. That's the point, I said. Humans don't fight to survive. They don't fight for honor or glory or resources. They fight because they find it fun. The chamber erupted in horrified murmurs. Furthermore, I continued, they have begun teaching other species their methods. The peaceful traders of Centauri Prime just defeated a pirate fleet using something called psychological warfare. They broadcast human stand-up comedy at the pirates until they surrendered from confusion. This is madness, declared General Crix. We must mobilize the combined fleet and eliminate this threat before what? I interrupted. Before they turn our own weapons against us? Before they convince our soldiers to quit and become interpretive dancers? Before they introduce our AIs to cat videos? The general sputtered. We are the most advanced military force in the galaxy. We cannot be defeated by primitives with projectile weapons and friendship bracelets. That's when the emergency klaxons started blaring. Incoming transmission, announced the Assembly's communication officer. It's from the humans. Chancellor Morketh straightened. Put it through. The main screen flickered to life. revealing Captain Lisa Martinez sitting in what appeared to be a comfortable chair, sipping from a steaming mug. Behind her, I could see what looked like a garden. "Hello there," she said cheerfully. "I'm Captain Martinez of the Human Diplomatic Corps. I understand you folks have been having some concerns about my species." "Diplomatic Corps?" the Chancellor asked suspiciously. "Our intelligence indicates you are military." "Oh, I am," Martinez replied. "But humans don't really distinguish between diplomacy and warfare. They're both just different ways of making friends." "You destroyed the Vraxian Armada," accused the Chancellor. "Did I? Huh. Well, they did try to enslave a human colony. That's generally considered poor etiquette where I come from." The casual way she dismissed the destruction of an entire battle fleet was somehow more terrifying than any threat could have been. "What do you want?" I found myself asking. Martinez smiled, and I felt a chill run down my spine. "I want to invite you all to a party." "A party?" Chancellor Murket repeated. "Yep. We are calling it the first annual Galactic Peace and Friendship Festival. Food, games, music, cultural exchange. Should be fun. And if we refuse," asked General Crix, that Martinez's smile never wavered, "then we will be very disappointed. And when humans get disappointed, we tend to express our feelings creatively. Last time we got disappointed, we convinced an entire star system to switch to a barter economy based on funny hats." The silence stretched until the hive mind representative chittered nervously. What kind of food?" "Oh, all kinds," Martinez replied enthusiastically. "We have been experimenting with fusion cuisine. Human pizza with Zeloxian flavor crystals is surprisingly good. And wait until you try our version of Vraxian battle rations. We call them nachos.